Hey guys, welcome to the RCVideoReviews.com unbox video of the Tower Hobbies P-51 Mustang by Phoenix model. Alright, so in my last video I mentioned that I got this plane as a Christmas gift from my lovely wife, and I've been anxious to get to work on it, and as you can see I've done a little bit of work. But not too far. It's not as far as you think. I really just put a servo in one of the wings and put the gear in one of the wings, but that's about it. I haven't really done much more than that. I do have the empennage in, but that's just set in there just for a dry fit. Anyway, let's get into the parts. Now, this airplane is made by Phoenix model, and very much like all the other Phoenix model planes, they have a good formula. You know, they have a common set of hardware they use. These oleo struts are very common for the other Phoenix planes. Now, if you watch my Pilatus PC9 video, you'll know that I used electronic retracts in that plane, and I've opted to go back to the mechanicals, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons is because even though they're a little bit more fiddly to get them installed correctly, once they're installed and you have them working right, they just work. Then that's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the mechanical retracts on the Mustang, and they're kind of cool looking. They're oleos. The struts actually move. The scissor mechanism I noticed is on the leading edge, which is a little unusual. I think in most planes it's on the trailing, but honestly I haven't looked at any historical footage on the plane to find out if that's correct or not. But that's the way they did it on this plane. Another little interesting touch that's new on Phoenix that I haven't seen on their planes yet before is they're using this plastic for the aileron cutout. Normally you get a traditional balsa wood built up kind of version where they cover it with the same film that's on the wing, and then you got the two little balsa blocks that you screw the servo into, and the arm comes out the gap. This piece of plastic does the same thing. You screw the servo into the backside. In fact, here, let's take a look. See, you just screw the servo into the backside right there, and it works. But I noticed on the one that I have in, when I was doing the servo setup, I was seeing a little bit of flex in the plastic. So we'll see. I'll keep an eye on that. Jury's out on that. The other downside, obviously, is it doesn't completely match the wing. So when you have a balsa piece, they cover it with the same film that they match on the wing. So all you see is the arm coming out. So kind of got a mixed emotion on that, but it is what it is. And maybe that keeps their production cost a little low. Who knows? You'll also notice there are no flaps on this version. This is an all aileron setup. So I will use a flapper-on setup. I'll use a 6-channel radio, and I'll go ahead and put in individual channels for the ailerons. They do, however, come pre-slotted. So the ailerons, and I've already glued my aileron hinges in, but they come pre-slotted, and just like all the other Phoenix planes, they do a real nice job with the alignment, making sure everything fits and it's square and straight, so I'm happy with that. Now, as far as the wing goes, you can see that the covering, I haven't touched this covering, so it needs a little bit. I do see a couple little flaws right here where they didn't quite sand that down enough before they covered it, and there's another one right there. So I do see a little bit of that. But as far as the rest of the wing goes, the only time I saw wrinkles was when I took the plane out and put it in the garage in the heat. And then I got a little bit of wrinkling, but this will be real easy to clean up with a little bit of soldering iron work. But compared to some of the other planes we've seen in the past, nothing. Also notice that I put a nice little hole in my covering when I was screwing one of the drilling a hole for one of the landing gear screws on the back. So that's the first time I've ever done that, oddly enough. So be careful when you're screwing those in. Don't go too far. You'll make a hole. So I'll have to cover that up with some silver tape. Anyway, that's it. As far as the wing goes, it does have the classic Mustang shape. I've seen some sport model versions of this plane where that, this little rise part right here is not part of the wing right here. It's just left out. It's a straight cut. I've seen that on, I think it's the Great Plains Mustang Sport. It's not quite right, but that one looks pretty good. And the wing, it looks solid. I mean, it looks like it's well built, and just like all the other Phoenix planes, I don't see any real issues with construction. So there's that wing. And then here's the other one. And this one I have gotten a little bit farther. There's two things I'll point out about this. One is that they require spacers in between the landing gear cover and this landing gear brace right here. And in my kit, they don't I didn't get the spacers, so I'm going to have to make my own. That's a little bothersome. I think they could have done better than that. And then the other thing that I've really noticed is problematic lately with the Phoenix planes, and I definitely saw it. Sorry, my cable got caught up there. I definitely see it on. I definitely saw it on the Spitfire, and I'm seeing it on this plane too. Look at the gap. That's the gap between the landing gear door and the bottom of the wing, and that's not insignificant. I mean, it's not as bad as the Spitfire was, but it's clearly there. And I got to be honest, it's just, I wish they'd fix that. I wish that Phoenix would find a way to figure out how to make that work better. And then the other thing I'll show you real quick, I'm going to pop this landing gear up. Again, you kind of have to do some surgery on this plastic cup, and while I was working on it, I cut mine, so I had to glue it a little bit. But the other problem that I had is this wire, no matter what I did on the bottom, the wire was rubbing. So I decided to run my landing gear wire in the landing gear well itself, and as soon as I did that, it stopped flexing, it stopped bending. The only modification I had to make over stock was right there. I had to cut the egress slot. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not, they have some work to do on the engineering side. So this is supposed to be an unbox, not a build video. I won't get too much further into that, but just be aware with that wire, that landing gear wire, I could not find a way to get mine to lay underneath this plastic cup and not get tension from the cup itself. And then these plastic cups, they do the job, but they just seem a little flimsy. The good thing is it's on the bottom of the airplane. So they use nylon screws. I did mount the wings in this plane just to check them out for fit, but they did fine. And they give you a little new on this plane is a little hardwood washer to keep from putting an indent in the wing. And then, you know, ailerons and everything are traditional Phoenix hardware. They've got these nice sturdy horns. They use the 90-degree bend with the stay and the adjustable clevis on the back, which is that's all good. All good. No problems with any of that. Now, one of the things I really like to pay attention to, because it goes to QA, is the cowl. And you can see there's some orange peel on this. There's a couple little dimples. I don't know if you can make that out on the film right there underneath my hand. There's one. I'm not sure if that's glued on or molded or painted. It looks like it's molded in the exhaust manifold and painted. And you can see there, that's just a little sloppy. That's overspray. So, you know, I guess it's just not what you get if you do it on your own. I guess that's the way you put it. But it certainly saves a lot of time, and there you can see some orange peel in there for sure. But I'd say overall, they've got ventilation in the cowl, which I strongly approve of that. You guys know how I feel about putting the ventilation in the cowl. I'm glad to see they do that. Strongly approve of that. And I love the color scheme. This one's not, you don't see this kind of color out there too often. It's yellow up front with a blue tail. So I think the color scheme looks really good, and I like the cowl. It's a big cowl. I mean, here's my hand. That's a pretty good size cowl. So it'll be fun to put that together and get that on the front. And then the wing spar is aluminum, and that's probably, I don't know, what is that? Probably about a 1/2 inch, I guess. I could measure it, but it's close. It's sturdy. I don't anticipate having any problems there. All right, now let's get to the fuselage. All right, the fuselage has a little quick release, and you can see the battery compartment. And I think this is designed to run anywhere from probably a 5 to a 6 cell battery. I'm going to be using a known working setup in this plane. I'm going to use a 5 cell with a Power 52 motor. And I don't see any problems fitting all of that stuff in. This looks like the servo tray, I believe. I believe that's a servo tray, and then the battery obviously will sit right in this area. So there's a lot of space in there. Actually, the cowl, let's put the cowl on just to give you a look. There you go. That's what the cowl looks like. So the battery obviously will have to slide up in the front like that when the cowl's on. But still, I don't think that'll be a problem at all. There's plenty of workable space in there. And then as far as the pilot goes, it looks like they did a real nice job on the eyes. They gave him pupils, which is cool, and some pretty heavy bushy eyebrows. I get a kick out of watching how they do these pilots. But he's got what looks like a period correct mask and helmet on, which is good. It's not a jet age thing like I used to wear when I was in the military. And there's a nice little dashboard. I haven't looked real close at the stickers to see if they put like a MP3 player on there or not. I've seen that before. But anyway, cockpit looks good. Canopy looks great. I have a lot of good things to say about how well Phoenix does with their canopies. They do better than I can. I'll just leave it at that. They do it better than I can do it for sure. And then the empennage section, let's take a look at that real quick. Again, there's the blue tail. I have not glued these hinges in, so that's off a little bit. But as far as I can tell, with just the rough look looking down this view of the plane, when you hold this thing up like this, when I had the wing on there, it looked to me like the horizontal stabilizer is nice and parallel with the wing. I didn't see any problems there. So that looks okay so far. Unlike some of the other recent builds I've done, you do have to cut the film off of the bottom. So if I pop this guy out, you see how the bottom there, you've got to cut that film off before you epoxy that into the groove. No big deal. It just takes a few minutes, but just, oops, almost dropped it. Just be aware that you do have to make that cut on this plane. And then I'll flip it over since I lost my vertical stabilizer, and we'll take a look at the bottom real quick. So this is the bottom where your servos will go. Oh, I was way off on that. The servos go back here. So standard size servos in this guy. And yeah, they go back here for the elevator and rudder. And then the wing saddle looks really good. And they give you some plastic molding pieces to finish out the belly tray to give it a full, a full P-51 look. So you just have to glue those on when you're in the build process. Now, as far as the fuselage goes, I'll just give you a little run down the side to give you a look. Again, see right there, there's a little bit of a bump that they probably could have sanded that a little bit better. But, maybe a couple decals will take care of that. Maybe not. But anyway, the covering looks really good. I mean, they just do a really nice job with their coverings. I've always been impressed with how Phoenix does so well with this, and they get it so right. And, little issues like that, that'll take me 5 seconds with an iron to get that cured. So yeah, fuselage looks really good. And just like the other Phoenix warbirds in this class, it weight-wise feels about the same. Build quality feels about the same. Overall, it's just a nice plane. The weird thing about this one, though, is it's a little bit more expensive than, like, say, the PC-9 or even the Spitfire. And they're very comparable in terms of the parts that you get and the quality of construction. Maybe that has something to do with demand. Maybe it has something to do with the complexity because, for example, you got these wing, I think they're called fillets or fillets, but these are in there, and maybe, that does take a little bit more time to do. So maybe there's a little bit of extra cost in doing that kind of work on the plane. But other than that, I'd say this is pretty much what we've come to expect from Phoenix. It's a well-built plane. There are no major glaring issues with it. I mean, there are sure a couple things that if it were handmade and custom, you might take a little more time to do and get better. It's got the decent mechanical setup that has been working fine on my Spitfire. No problems there at all, so I'll be sticking with that. And there you go. That's the unbox. I will get this thing done and in the air and maiden as soon as I can. And then when I'm done, I'll get back to my standard approach where I'll do the build review and final thoughts. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this has been informative and helps you decide one way or another on whether or not you want to go for the Tower Hobbies Mustang by Phoenix. I will say this one's out of stock right now. I just checked the other day and it was out. So, but it looks like Tower's been doing a pretty good job lately getting their stocks back up to normal levels. So maybe there'll be something there. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, if it's been useful to you, please think about subscribing and hitting that little notifications button so you can get informed whenever there's new postings to the channel. And take it easy. We'll see you at the field.